I know there's so many people in the world who face chronic struggles. They either were abused as a child, they're possibly addicted to alcohol now, they're addicted to drugs, they're addicted to sexual addiction, etc. And I personally am living proof that God can release you from those things. So there's a long time where I was doing drugs. And then I knew in my heart that it's not who I wanted to be. And there was a point where I asked God, I'm like, God, just help release me from this. And He helped me overcome that. And I've had a long time in my life, since I was 15 years old, I've had issues with sexual addiction. And when I come back to God, He restores me. He sets me back into the right place. And I believe there's a lot of people that are trying to find the solution for the problems that they have in their life through physical means. That if I just get in the right place, if I take the right drugs, that I'll be able to overcome the addictions that I have. And I would oftentimes try to replace an addiction with another addiction. But once my relationship with Jesus Christ began, what happened is He started changing things in me and helping me reorient how I perceive things in my life to help me gain the victory over those challenges that I had. So if, for example, I kept turning towards an addiction, God instead had me look at myself and say, okay, where is it in my life that I am holding bitterness? Where is it in my life that I hold revenge towards certain people? I want to have a revenge against certain people who did me wrong in my life. And when I wanted to solve my problems through revenge or non-forgiveness or just holding on to an injury or pain, what I found is that the healthy, life-giving force that God gives us gets redirected into a form of corruption. And that corruption resists us from being able to live in a godly way and speak the truth. And that sinful approach to my life eventually got me to a point of no return where I knew no way to move forward. And I know that there's many people in this world who they feel the same thing. They're like, I feel stuck. I have no way to move forward. And eventually, God finally got through enough to me to help me realize that living in a sinful way is not going to get me what I want. It's not ultimately going to get me what I want. And there's all these lies that tell us that, oh, you need to have a bunch of partners to be happy. Oh, you need to have fun to have a good life. Like, you have to just live a wild life. Like, today I hear that song where girls just want to have fun. And there's nothing wrong with having fun, but oftentimes that crosses into this realm of living in a way that's not God-pleasing. And I never wanted to separate myself from my living in that worldly way. I wanted God, and I wanted to live in a sinful way as well. I wanted God, but I also wanted to be able to curse. Say curse words, for example. I wanted God, but I wanted to still smoke cigarettes. I wanted God, but I wanted to be able to have like multiple partners, or be able to sleep with people outside of wedlock, or be able to follow I wanted Jesus Christ, but I wanted to be able to follow other gods too. I wanted Jesus Christ, but I wanted to follow Krishna. I wanted Jesus Christ, but I wanted to follow these gurus. And all of them say that, oh, I will give you the truth. I will give you life. I will give you a new beginning. And what you find is that you end up getting, you just keep going back to them. You keep going back to them. You keep going back to them. And you feel hungrier and hungrier and less fulfilled and less fulfilled. But what I found with Jesus is like, do you know what? Yes, I am. He always asks me to come back to him. He always asks me to come back to him. But when I leave, I am fulfilled. I go back to him because I find that I'm fulfilled. And for all the other things, I would go back to them because I lacked fulfillment. It's this whole double down mentality. It's like, well, that last high wasn't enough, so I need an even greater fix to replace it. And it took me from being an average high school kid to getting involved with drug dealers, getting involved with people who were selling narcotics, going to a school where I just was taught liberalism and how all these things are supposed to be the things that make me happy. But truthfully, man, when I meet people who are going down that path, they are the most miserable people. They really are just so miserable, and they live their whole entire life trying to get acceptance from other people. But when you accept Jesus Christ, you soon start to see that, you know what, most people aren't going to accept you. But I guarantee you one thing is that they will remember you. And as a person, you know that a lot of the world won't accept you, but those people who do accept you, there is no one you cherish more. And you have that presence of God with you, even when so much of the external world is fighting against you. And even the external spiritual world is fighting against you. And you can live in a way where the whole world will accept you and will give you all that you want, all the physical desires that you want. But it's fake. It's like it makes you a hollow plastic person. Makes you a hollow plastic person. You no longer can even you never can have like heartfelt conversations with people. You become nothing more than a human doing. It's what you're doing, not who you're being. And I was so miserable with myself and in my life. I chased all these spiritual gurus, and I tried to create this persona of like this new age like person. And now when people present to me these like new age ideas and they say, oh, this is the truth, I don't even like ponder it. Because I've seen it all face to face, and I saw where it got me to. There was this point where I was so lost and so confused that I didn't even believe that I existed as a person anymore. I took all my old journals that I wrote through college and through high school. I took all of the things I wrote about, like my internal experience trying to discover myself. I took all the books I had. I had a complete library of spiritual books. I would say, let's just say 40 books. After I'd already cleaned out some in the past, I took those 40 books, read 100 books. And none of those philosophies just made me feel like they were complete. I would have had to read another 100 books and read another 100 books. But I read the Bible and I'm like, wow, the Bible that's all I needed to know. All I needed to know is that Jesus Christ sees me in my weakness, in my sin, and he came and lived the perfect life and covered me and fulfilled me with that perfect life. That's like, it's all I need to know. Learned everything I need to know. And all these other books, I burned them all. I had a fire in my dad's backyard. I put them all in the fire pit and I lit them all on fire with all my journals. I even burned my Bibles because I really did not know what was the truth. I didn't know what was the truth. I would say I went to the Life Perspective clothing store and I tried on every single outfit. And I never found one that fit me. I never found one that fit. And then I read the Bible and I found that I had a custom tailored suit to fit me. Tailored clothing designed to fit me. And that's what's so amazing about Jesus, is that Jesus doesn't try to make you something special so that you feel proud of yourself. Jesus doesn't come to you and say, okay, now you're a Reiki master, now you teach yoga, now you teach transcendental meditation, now you do, and you start getting all these, like here you've meditated for 5.5 weeks straight without ever having a thought. Like now you have been promoted. Like Jesus doesn't do that. It's not like you have to rest upon your achievements. What Jesus does is Jesus comes and he says, I complete you. And all of a sudden, what I found in my life is that my life started to slowly rotate. It's like I was like a big heavy rock. And God just slowly started to rotate me. He started to rotate me. Because what he saw, and I believe that this is what happens with many people who are in the New Age movement, is that God sees you as a person. And God sees you as that person, and he sees you as your desire to seek for truth. And that's the case for a lot of people. A lot of people who go into the New Age are simply looking for the truth. And when you're really looking for the truth, I believe God honors that. Like if you really genuinely will give up everything just so you can find truth with a capital T, God honors that. But if you're trying to find truth with a capital T, but you still want to I still want to hang out with all these old friends. Truth with a capital T, I still want to drink excessively. Truth with a capital T, I don't want to give up smoking or give up my partnerships. I don't want to give up my identity with my sexuality. I don't want to give up the fact, I don't want to give up being gay. I don't want to give up cross-dressing. Because remember, God sees you complete as you are. He knows, God knows that you do not find fulfillment in your identity. Because God takes our identity and he turns it to him. Jesus Christ becomes our identity. Nothing else has the power to do that. And it took me years. It's taken me years. And sometimes I've struggled with God. Sometimes I've been like there's a story of Jonah in the Bible where God told Jonah to go preach somewhere and he didn't want to, and God swallowed him. He had him swallowed up in a fish. And God has done that a lot for me. And another thing that God has done is that God has taken the things that I think are important, those things that I am held on to, that I hold as idols, like either financial success or like worldly success, or having people admire me because I wear nice clothing, for example. And all these things in my mind that I thought were so important, but then God put me in those situations and then had me compare that situation to his goodness. And I soon started to realize that like all that stuff, none of it is worth it. God's goodness is so much greater. And the one repeating string that comes through all the people, those people who have had near-death experiences, those people who have had conversions to seeing Jesus Christ as the Son of God, the one thing that is consistent is a level of awe, of just this realization of awe and acceptance through innocence. Because even Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, because the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." So when we come to God as a child, with that trust. Remember when you were a child, and maybe you didn't have the best parents, but I imagine there was a time where you would go to your parent when you were struggling with something because you trusted that they could help you. You didn't go to your parent when you're struggling with something as a child and say, "Mom or Dad, I already know the answers. I don't really need your help. But if I mess up, come rescue me." Like, that's not what we did when we were real children. When we were real children, we went to our parents because we did not know the answer. And they helped guide us, and they comforted us. And they revealed to us the knowledge and the wisdom that they had, and shared their love with us. And that's what God did to me. I eventually finally had to come to God and say, "God, I don't know." That's really like if the bare bones of it is coming before God and saying that, "God, everything I thought I knew, which was true and right, I was wrong. I was wrong." And pride is the single thing that stands in most people's way. And I believe a lot of people, we become disheartened when God breaks us. When life, let's just say not even God, let's just say life. When life breaks us down. And we have two options. We can respond in hate and anger and revenge and say if that breakdown came from the result to someone else, we can seek the revenge. And then soon what we become is we become a tyrant. And we just restart the cycle. The other option is going like, "God, I have been broken by all these people. I've been broken by all these life experiences. And God, I don't want to get angry at them, but I need you. I need you to fight for me where I can't fight for myself. Simply saying, I don't know the answers. And that's what Jesus was able to help me. He helped put me in my place. What he said to me is like, it's like, you think that you can just live on all this debt, for example. You believe that just because you went to school and you accrued all this debt, that you should all of a sudden just be given a great job and have all these things. But at the same time, you expect this, but at the same time, you don't take me seriously. God's saying, you don't take me seriously in the things that I say. You can't take a step back and actually consider that the expectations that God had for us were actually for our good. He did things because he actually knew that it was good for us and it was good for others, that we didn't damage ourselves and we did not damage others. And then I lived in a way where I was doing damage to myself. I was doing damage to others. And I would tell people, I'm so spiritual, I'm so close to God. Look at me, hallelujah. Just all this stuff, but not having the internal awareness to see where I was completely living outside of God's will. And you soon start to turn, your world starts to turn from me wanting others to believe that I believe in God to me wanting God to believe in me. Having God want to be part of my life because I am his child, because he sees me as his child. And he took me from being a pothead, to being a druggie, to being a new age dropout, to being a womanizer, to being this worldly aristocrat. Back to presence with him. Gave me back to presence with him. So to be frank, if you're the type of person it's just like, I want to have nothing to do with God, God's fake anyways, I don't even know why you watch these videos. Because I can't help you, frankly. If you're the type of person who has had a really rough, difficult life, and you genuinely want God in your life, you have to just really get low in some ways. And it's not something to be ashamed of. Like so many people where it's like we're ashamed to get low before God and say that. Just really show God how we acknowledge how bad we've been. And when we really get low and acknowledge before God how bad we've been. And not like self-pity and like just pathetic weird stuff. It really is just like honesty. Being honest with God and getting low before him. And just simply showing him, you're like, God, I am broken. I am completely broken. And the only thing that I possibly have is you. you are the only thing I possibly have that can redeem me. And God shows mercy. That's the thing, is like, people are like, oh, God's so bad, he's so mean and all this stuff. It's like, well, it's because we want God on our terms. It's like, we got God, okay, God, like, I'll have you if you do this and that and all sorts of other things. As long as I can still be like this, as long as you don't chastise me for saying mean things about people or gossiping about people, then yeah, like that'd be great, God, if you can just help me along. But the moment that God wants something from us, and it's not necessarily going out and doing something. Like, that's another thing, is we can go out in the world and be like, I am such an ambassador for God, I'm going to go convert the nations. But we ourselves have not ever let God convert us. Like, how are we ever going to help someone else if we can't let God help us? And I know there's another group of people that are who are near death. There could be people watching this who are at death's door. And it can be tough to want God at that moment, because we hold on to our life and be like, God, I want God to bring me good times in life, so when I leave this life, I'm like, oh, God, he gave me all these good things. But I would say for some of us, that is not or will not be the case. For some of us, we leave this life in a sick, broken, destroyed state. In sometimes a brutal state. But if we surrender to that, will of God, we find that God meets us there. There's Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Christian pastor in Germany during World War II. And in Germany during World War II, he became part of a resistance party in Germany. I believe that he was part of a group that was trying to assassinate Hitler. I don't know if that last part is completely true, but I was reading an excerpt about him. He was executed. He was captured and executed by gunfire. I think he was asked to kneel and was killed. And one of the captains who was present, or one of the Nazi officers that was there, said, I had never seen a man die with such dignity. What he was implying is that he saw the presence of Christ in him when he died. He recognized that there was something involved with Dietrich Bonhoeffer that was more than human. And just because you are not obtaining success in the way that you think God will give it to you, that does not mean that God does not see you as a success himself. Because the human The worldly perception of success is very different than the view that God has on success. And God uses some of the most lowly people to do great things. He does this reverse with people. God makes the mighty people lowly. And God takes the lowly people and he makes them mighty. And in this lifetime, you are able to experience that. You're able to experience the Spirit of God in your life. It's not easy. There's an active, invisible force that you cannot see easily. Sometimes you get glimpses of it, but there's an active spiritual force that oppresses you, who desires for you to shut your mouth. Who throws wrenches into the mechanics. But through that process, through that experience, you find yourself, if you keep turning to Jesus and God, you find your trust grow and grow. It keeps growing. It becomes more solidified, more resolved. More concerned only with the will of God and not the will of the world, not the will of the emotions in whatever way they drive you. Instead of impulsively going and be like, I'm going to go get a hamburger, instead the desire to ask God, like, what is it that you will for me to do? Is you would just want me to go get a hamburger? Or is there something else you want me to do? And oftentimes we want God to act in a fast forward. It's like we come to God and you just want to say, like, okay, God, I want to hit double fast forward. I just want to go, boop. All right, I'm there. I have arrived. But sometimes what God does is God goes like, let's go in slow mode. So God cuts the speed in half. And it's like, there's a destination that you want to get to, and it seems like that God is going even slower than what you would imagine. But what you don't realize is at that point is that when we're back here at that start point, we think that we're ready. We think that we're ready to get to that point. But what God does is God cuts the speed back. And God is like, dude, you got a lot of things we got to deal with. We don't know, like, who knows if you'll ever get to that hypothetical point you want to get to. We got to deal with these things first. And that can take time. And sometimes even if you're willing, God isn't ready for you to go through that. And then all of a sudden you find that God changes you at that slow down speed and slow motion, and you realize that you don't even think about, like, I don't even think about that stuff, and that stuff isn't that important to me anymore. And that's what's so amazing about God, is that God acts in a way, this is the best way to say it. Most people have a life that is formed and based upon the things they think about, the things they learned as a child, or growing up and developing. And that's great. It's like how you get things done in life. You hold chopsticks and use them the same way as when you learn them, right? But sometimes what we do is we rest on that so much. And what God does is God will have us go through things and do things in a way that we never even learned about doing or how to. And that itself completely changes us as a person. And I believe wholeheartedly that God can change you no matter what you are. I've heard enough testimonies from people who were living the life of a gay man in San Francisco and seen their friends die from AIDS. I've heard testimonies from people like that. You hear testimonies from people who are murderers and they find that Jesus changes them. And then you find testimonies from people who were high-powered, very successful people, and God doesn't change them. Then that's it. God never reaches or touches them. So if you find yourself knowing, or even at moments experiencing that presence of God, and you feel like you're lacking in everything else, but you have God, you have Jesus, you are blessed. You are so blessed, because there's people that have all those things that you may want, plus some, multiples, more than they would ever need, and they cannot have God and be completely corrupt and never find Jesus. Never. They'll never find that peace. They'll just have the strive. They'll always have, like, I always need more. Just this appetite, this continuous appetite. I always need to consume or own or have more, achieve more. And there's that phrase where, like, the peace of God, it's beyond understanding, really. It's like the peace of God that is beyond all understanding, where at a certain mind, it's like you just find that peace of God, and your mind is quiet, and your heart is full, and the world around you is beautifully pristine, even when there's trash on the ground. Because you're like, you know what? God found me. God found me. And He saved me. He cared about me that much. He cared about me so much that He would put up with all of my stupidity. He'd put up with all my pride. He'd put up with all the bad things that I said to Him after all this time. And He still has remained my friend. He is still stuck in there and hung in there with me. And He has helped me be a better person. He's helped me become a better man. And I became someone unlike anyone I imagined that I would be. And I find that I'm happier with who I am than I ever could have been with who I imagined I would be. And that is a beautiful gift, because there's many people who never become who they imagine they would be. Or there's people who become who they imagine they could be, and they find themselves very dissatisfied with that person. They thought that they could be greater. They thought that when they arrived, that would be enough fulfillment to face life, to face death. But when our identity changes and the most important person in our life becomes the God of the universe, the Lord Jesus Christ, then all of a sudden our identity changes. We start to see that, wow, my understanding of God was so far off. But when I allow God to show me who He is, and when in that process of Him showing me who He is, it simultaneously is changing me, then it's a beautiful and it's a great gift to receive. And it's nothing I deserved. After a while, you actually start to believe that, like, with God, with Jesus, I can completely stop sinning. It's such a miracle. It's such a blessing that He gives free. He's given it. He's already done the work. He's already given us freely. He's already given that miracle to all of us. But it's our choice if we receive it or not. If someone gives us a gift and we decide we don't like it, that person is doing the favor. They've already given the gift to you, but it's your choice. It's each individual person's choice if they want to accept it or receive it or not. Or actually accept it as a worthwhile and good gift. A lot of people may see the gift, but they're like, that's a horrible and trashy gift. I want this other, I want to keep what I already have. So Jesus saved my life. And He's still working on me. And I am thankful for that. And I'm excited to see where He takes me. But I want to say, this world's not right. We all know it. We try to design around it. We try to paint over it. We try to blame our problems on other people. But when we really face the truth, we realize what this world isn't right. And humans are going to hit the wall. There's going to be we're going to keep driving forward to the beat of the drum, not even knowing where we're going. Just creating to create. Making the very weapons that are designed to protect us, they're going to actually destroy us. And there is a select group of people that thought that if we could just get everyone to think the same way, everything will be okay. And those people are the virus. But the virus has confused those people who have the truth. And in the end, those people who have the truth are going to overcome. And the people who have the virus, which they believe is the truth, are going to be severely disappointed. It's the virus that believes that sin is innate, that sin is natural, that sin is to be embraced. So the Bible says the wages of sin are death, and the results will be no different for any of us. So that's my testimony. If you're a young man or girl in your teens or in your mid-20s, man, don't chase this world. Don't do it. This modern world it's not going to give you what it says it will. You'll find yourself with children out of wedlock. You'll find yourself having chosen an abortion. You'll find yourself with a body covered with tattoos that don't age as well as things in the Louvre. And you're going to find yourself with addictions that harm your health. And you're going to find yourself around people who will sell you out for $5. And you may find yourself in a minority, but I promise you, when you have that relationship with God, when you have God with you, you know that all problems will be resolved. That God can take care of all those things. It may not be in your timing, but you have that reassurance in your heart. You have that comfort. And if God is spiritual, then why would it not be in a spiritual way? Why would we not experience God in a spiritual way? Why would we not experience a spiritual truth rather than an empirical truth? So thank you for watching, and God bless you all.